You know what's something I love about books? Things happen in them. Like, generally, when you pick up a random book and read it, you can expect some stuff to happen. Like it to have a plot, right? But what about the rare instances where that's not what you get? Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at these books right here: A Crown of Swords, the Path of Daggers, Winter's Heart, and Crossroads of Twilight. These are the 7th through 10th books of the Wheel of Time, and they're quite controversial. And I think most people who follow fantasy stuff online have heard of them. Yes, this is the mythical Slog, the legendary hurdle of all hurdles. If you can get through these 4 books, you can get through anything. And this is something I have, of course, been hearing about since the very beginning, and something I was very well aware of when I started the series. Now, there is debate on where this section of the story starts, but most people can agree that there are books in the middle of Wheel of Time that were just not up to the standard of the ones that came before it, and apparently the ones that come after it. Now, do I agree with this very bold assessment of the series? Yes, and today we're going to talk about it. As always, these are not in-depth summaries. I'm not going to be spoiling the whole books. They're just sort of a check-in on my current Wheel of Time journey, an opportunity for people to see how I'm feeling and if I still recommend the series and all that. So if you remember last time when we discussed the Fires of Heaven and Lord of Chaos, I really loved Lord of Chaos. I thought that was a stupendous fantasy novel, but I did note something, and that was despite the book being like 900 pages long, it really didn't feel like a ton had happened in it. I do think the book made up for it with its very interesting character moments and big payoffs, but I can also understand why someone else might think that the slog starts with Lord of Chaos. And I was a little concerned going forward because at this point I could definitely understand how these books might start to drag on. That brings us to A Crown of Swords. And this is a book that deals with the, massive consequences and changes of the Lord of Chaos in a way that I actually thought was quite good. I think this book has a ton of really fantastic moments, but I also think that this book was severely lacking in a few areas that the series had not been lacking in up to this point. Because like Lord of Chaos, this book has a lot of waiting for stuff to happen, and people just walking around camp and yapping about things we already know. But unlike Lord of Chaos, all of this downtime just feels like filler. Like, there's no point to it. For every cool thing that's happening, we have to get through all of this nonsense. I continue to really enjoy the story of these books. I love what is going on with Rand and the Ashaman, the Black Tower, the schism within the White Tower. It's all extremely compelling stuff, but it's all just kind of stuff that has happened already, and we just keep reiterating things over and over again. Also, I mentioned the romance in this series last time, and how I found it very entertaining. Not that it was particularly well done romance, but that, it was in just like a fun, campy, melodramatic type of way. But here is when I think the romance starts to grate on me a little bit. There were definitely some moments that I thought worked well and were entertaining, but we're still doing this stupid love triangle nonsense, and it feels like it never ends. I actually really like Min as a character, but I need them to stop yapping, okay? Just chill, for the love of God, and do something interesting. That's the other thing. A lot of interesting things that have been happening with our characters either starts to stagnate or just stops happening. At the point of the 4th book, Perrin was probably my favorite character in the Wheel of Time. But after that, it feels like Jordan just completely forgot to, write interesting stuff for him. He's here for sure, but I've So yeah, I was definitely a bit let down by this book. I was hoping that I would fall into the camp where, the slog doesn't start at book 7, but I definitely felt like it did. Still has some great moments, don't get me wrong, and I definitely am exaggerating when I say nothing happens in these books. Obviously some stuff does, and it's still really good. So I jumped into The Path of Daggers, hoping against hope that maybe I would find this one more enjoyable. And you know what? I almost did. The Path of Daggers hits the ground running, and I think it truly had some fantastic moments. And while I was a bit disappointed we didn't get any Matt in this book, I think the stuff with Rand made up for it, and, the whole ending sequence here knocked it out of the park. But despite that, I still feel like large sections of this book just continued the trend of nothing interesting really going on. I think that if you take Crown of Swords and Path of Daggers and smush them together, cut out 500 pages or something, you'd get one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. I'm not even kidding. There's so much great stuff here. It has all the ingredients to be as good as Lord of Chaos, Shadow Rising, The Great Hunt, all my favorites of the series. But there's so much stalling, man. I don't get it. And they introduce characters at such an insane rate that it's genuinely difficult to keep track of everyone at this point. The world building continues to be incredible, but I think the story still needs to be, easy to follow and engaging, and I think those things are really starting to slip through the cracks here. But because the ending of Path of Daggers was so good, and it sets up so many crazy things happening, I was actually quite excited to jump into Winter's Heart, because it seemed insane to me that people don't like this book. Because I'm thinking, geez, if this follows up Path of Daggers with all this crazy stuff, it's gotta be good, right? I'm still waiting for that stuff to happen, bro. Everything Path of Daggers set up still hasn't happened yet. I read both of these. What? These two books are insane, bro. They're insane. How is stuff that they have been talking about since, book 6, 7, and 8 have not happened yet? What do you mean? What do you mean your wife is still kidnapped? What do you mean they still haven't done the tower siege? This is 1,000 pages of content. What could possibly happen in these books if the stuff they were setting up doesn't? Nothing! These two books were aggravating. It's always kind of a meme how descriptive Robert Jordan is. He just loves to go off with his world building and populate every single room, describe every single article of clothing, every spoon on the table. This is when I really started to notice it being super egregious, and I don't know if it was always there and I'm just noticing it more now because I'm not really engaged with the story, but it's just paragraphs upon paragraphs of people crunching through the snow and yapping about the tower siege that's never gonna happen. Oh my god, you're pregnant. Okay, that's the first thing to happen in this book. Jesus. And in Crossroads of Twilight, he does the thing again where Rand is not in this book. Why is our interesting main character not in this book? Especially, it's one of the shortest ones. You couldn't do anything with him? How about, wrap up some of these plot lines? Seriously, what is going on? Why is Rand in prison for petty crimes? Why is Matt getting over and over again? What is happening? Here's the frustrating thing, because, when a lot of series, quote-unquote fall off or get bad or whatever, it's usually because the characters change in a negative way or the story just gets bad. That's not actually happening in these books, despite how it might sound. I think the world here is still amazing, the characters are still very interesting, and the overall story of the Wheel of Time continues to be great. But nothing is happening with it! Do something! It's a miracle I'm sitting here today talking to you about these. The only reason I actually was able to get through them is because I took out some audiobooks from my library. And that's the winning strategy because, once you take out those audiobooks, you have 3 weeks to get through them. And because they're popular, there's a long queue, so, you can't waste that time. And I think that if I tried to read these like I did the other books, I don't know if I could have done it, man. Everyone promises that the books pick up after this, which is something I knew, something I'm aware of, something I hope for. I don't know if that would have been enough to get me through They were so dull and just frustrating, because again, there's great stuff in here. There are some good things that happen in these books. Some moments where I'm like, oh, right, I forgot this was, really good. Robert Jordan's an amazing author. But these were rough, man. rough. And the reason I'm talking about two of them together is because I literally can't tell these apart. It just felt like they put me into a fugue state. With the last two books, I said you likely could have trimmed out a lot and combined them. These two books could have been a goddamn prologue, bro. Jordan loves his, 50-plus page prologues. Yeah, that's all this needed to be. This goes against everything I believe, and I never thought in a million years I'd be saying it. But if you struggle with books 7 and 8, I genuinely think you can skip these. Yes, Robert Jordan's a great writer, and there is some important stuff in these books, like a minuscule amount, but I'd rather be reading any other thing he ever wrote than these two books. The Wheel of Time wiki has chapter summaries. That's all I will say. Now, obviously, this might not be the case for you. Obviously, these books are still extremely popular, and a lot of people do like even the Slog books, and I think that's perfectly great. It's why I would still recommend, at least trying them before you decide to skip them. I can't imagine being a fan as these were coming out. I think I would die. They waited so long to get back to the great stuff. And having actually started Knife of Dreams, I can confirm that almost immediately, this is a significant upgrade, and I'm very excited to continue. I think we may be back. I just want to assure you all of this, because I know I got a bit heated in this video, but I think things are back on track, and I'm very grateful for it. But this slog here was just something inevitable that I knew I had to get through, and I am so glad it's over. So heed this warning, travelers. This is definitely not the smoothest ride of all time, but time, as they say, is a wheel. And with that, thank you all for watching. Leave your thoughts on anything Wheel of Time in the comments down below. Next time, we are going to be taking a look at the final books Robert Jordan wrote before passing, The Knife of Dreams and New Spring. And all that's left after that is the Sanderson trilogy to finish it off. It's gonna happen this year. I'm quite excited for it. Because not only will I be finishing this years-long journey, but I'll also actually be completing Brandon Sanderson's bibliography, at least to the extent I wanted. There's a few middle grade stuff I haven't checked out, but yeah, basically.